Everyone, and welcome to week 5 of English 200 and 201, Creative Writing. This week, we're going to be introducing the next genre, the genre of fiction. We'll begin by talking about the different parts of a story, and we'll talk about the 3 main parts of a story that are most important: the characters, the setting, and the dialogue. Your first assignment will be to participate in a discussion forum where we'll be getting our feet wet writing short fiction and responding to each other's short fiction in ways that'll help each other improve our writing. Your next writing assignment will be your journal exercise 11, where you're going to try out writing an iceberg. The next writing assignment will be your writing journal exercise 12, where you'll try out writing a facade. And then your final assignment this week will be to complete revising one of those 3 exercises as your formal assignment number 5 for fiction. So welcome to your last genre, fiction. You've made it through 2 genres already. Good job. Now we're going to move on to writing very short fiction. Fiction means to shape or fashion. And literary fiction is very different from genre fiction. Genre fiction is more science fiction writing or fantasy writing, mysteries, romance. This is popular genre fiction, and we're not going to be writing that in this class specifically. For this class, we're going to write literary fiction. The elements of fiction include the structure and design. That's called the plot. This is what happens and what causes those things to happen in a story. When you're writing a very short story, an important tip is to really keep it simple. Characters. These are the people in your story, including the main character, who's called the protagonist. Dialogue. This is what characters say to each other in your story. Setting. This is where and when a story takes place. Point of view, tone, and style. Tone is the attitude toward the listener that you portray as a writer. Point of view is who and how the story is told. Here's some tips from one of my favorite short story writers, Ron Carlson. In his book, Ron Carlson Writes a Story. Don't try to tell too many stories at once. A story that is too complicated uses up its energy just to explain what's happening. Don't write a last line that surprises the reader. And then I woke up. You've done all this work writing a short story. Why blow it up in the end by saying, and then I woke up? Or then she woke up from her dream. Or then she died, right? Make sure you end in a way that's going to make the reader think in the end and not get mad at you. Don't write about things you don't know about. Don't write a story whose main point is that it is told from some unexpected point of view. Don't write stories that are simply idea-driven. Don't overpopulate your stories with so many characters. Remember, in a short story the size we're going to be writing, you need 1, 2, maybe 3 characters. Don't give your characters names that sound similar. You don't want the names to rhyme or to have the first same sound. Don't spend the first 2 pages of your story explaining your story. Just start in the action of things. Don't outline or plan out your entire story. Let the story take you where it intends to go. And don't be afraid to not be driving the car. That means sit in the back seat and let the characters do the driving. Write towards what you know. Here's a quotation. A writer goes into a story with a dream or a vision that is the North Star, and an understanding of craft that is the footing, an instinct passion that is a driving force. If an idea matters to you, then it is worthy of your exploration. If you don't want to read the story, it's not worth writing. So make sure when you're reading it, and this isn't just those of you who are just feeling bad about your writing, you want to make sure that it's an exciting story. It's something that, or it's an interesting story. It's something that the reader, that you as a reader would like. So here are the parts of every short story, and every story you write for this class should include all of these parts. The first thing is every story has a protagonist, a main character. And every story has an antagonist. That is a person, place, or thing that causes a conflict with the main character. And every story has a setting. That's where and when a story takes place. So every story begins with an exposition. This is a statement of the situation as story. It's where you introduce the setting and the main characters. Then every story includes a conflict or crisis. This is the main crisis of the story. It usually involves complications and a main crisis action. Basically, something happens to the protagonist, and the following action is what happens as a result of that something happening, the crisis. Finally, the resolution is how the story resolves. In modern fiction, this isn't usually a clean process. It doesn't just say, and then this happened and all was good, right? You can leave things unresolved, but you need to have a crisis, and you need to introduce all your characters and your setting in your exposition. So here's 3 great examples of short fiction. This is in your reading for this week. The first short story we're reading is called Crossing the River Zubretz, written by Isaac Babel in 1926. This is a classic, amazing story, and it deserves more than one reading for you to really get the most out of it. So those of you who are taking this course as 201 or 202, you are getting the opportunity to read this story again and get more out of it. When you read it, pay attention to the description of the setting and the subtle plot. Pay attention to where the story ends. Why does he choose to end the story where he does? Also, pay attention to how things are described, and how that implies a tone in the writing. The next story you're going to be reading is called The Baby. This is written by Donald Bartholomew, and it was published in 1983. Pay attention to how he sets the setting and the crisis of the story within the first 3 sentences. And feel how extreme he goes in how surreal this situation is, right? And how you can pull that off in fiction. We're on TV in the Universe. This was written by Stephanie Vaughn in 1990. Pay attention to how she tells the story. There's the interweaving of past events, the story, and then future events. Pay attention to the details she chooses to include to tell her story. There's 2 short story types, though, that we're going to be thinking about this week, and we're going to be writing these 2 types. The first is called a facade. This is where you tell an anecdote in the voice of a character who is not you. As the character tells his story, have him unknowingly undercut or discredit his explanation. This helps. This allows you to create characters through their own voices, and the discrepancy between the image the character wants to project and what actually comes across creates really a tension. A great example of this is the short story The Yellow Wallpaper. An iceberg is where you write an argument in which the character's real feelings are not fully expressed. Arguments are central to fiction. They are conflicts. They create tension and they reveal character. What your characters don't say can be more important. Dialogue should be cryptic. Use all aspects of communication, facial expressions, body language, etc., in order to show the conflict and the feelings of these characters. Do not use any abstract words. Setting is another character in this type of story, and a great example of this is Hemingway's short story, The Hills Like White Elephants. So characters, let's talk a little bit about characters. They're really the heart of your story. When you write characters, you want to keep it real, and imperfect is okay because real people are imperfect. When you write a character that's real, it will be a round character. That means it's a character that has both good and bad. A flat character is just one-dimensional. Show change over the course of the story to your main character. Desire, suggest complexity. Give the reader little hints throughout your story. Invent. Don't just write characters as exact replicas of those you know or yourself. Instead, amalgamate. Bring different aspects of different people into a single character. Give your characters your sympathy, even if they aren't good people. Think about the name you give your character. Not all characters in short stories need names, and make sure when you're describing your character, you don't just describe him or her based on their eye color. Begin by brainstorming who your character is. You may not use this information in your story, but it's going to help you prepare how to write. Here are some sample questions to ask yourself about your character. Where was your character born? How old is your character? What does your character look like? What type of music does your character like? What is your character's job? How does he or she get to work? How is his greatest dream? What is his or her greatest dream and or biggest fear? What does your character want more than anything else in the world? Another really important part of your story is the scene. Setting is where and when a story takes place. Setting is important for highlighting the characters and their conflicts. When you describe the setting, use specific detail, just like when you were writing poetry and creative nonfiction, and sensory detail. What do the characters see? What do they feel? What do they smell, right? Really, really dive into sensory detail. Setting can also be a character. If you want to see examples of this, read Jack London's To Build a Fire or Kate Chopin's The Storm. Both are available for free on the internet. Finally, the last thing you really want to think about this week when you're writing your short stories is writing dialogue. Dialogue should always be brief. It should add to the reader's knowledge. It should eliminate the routine exchanges of everyday conversation. Don't have, hey, what's up? What's up, man? Right? Take out that kind of stuff unless that's what's going to drive the story forward. They should seem spontaneous. They should have spontaneity. They should move the story forward. They should tell the reader about the speaker's character, and it should reveal relationships between the characters in the story. Questions to ask yourself are, do you have enough dialogue? Do you have too much dialogue? Does your dialogue sound like real speech? Have you clearly and unobtrusively tagged all speakers of dialogue, meaning do we know who's speaking at what time? So, your first assignment this week is you're going to try your hand at fiction. Now it's your turn to give short fiction a try. Free write for 10 to 15 minutes. And when I say free write, that means just start typing in the dialogue box. You don't have to, this doesn't have to be perfect. You want to run spell check, right? And read it over, but it's not perfect yet. This is just trying your hand at it. You're going to free write for 10 to 15 minutes about a difficult conversation between two people, such as a daughter who doesn't want her mother to look in her backpack to see she's gotten enough on a report card but can't hide the fear in her voice, or a car of commuters who are all driving to work the day there are to be major layoffs, but no one knows who will lose their job. Let the conversation, the words and reactions reveal the tensions of the situation. Use a setting that can also help reveal the crisis of the moment. Never reveal what the characters are actually talking about. Your initial post is due July 17th by 11:59 p.m. That's Friday night. Responses to your peers, 3 of them are due by July 19th. That's Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Remember, when you respond to your peers, you want to give constructive criticism. You're doing a great job giving positive feedback. Now you also need to give feedback that allows them, that gives them the opportunity to revise and make their piece better. So your first writing journal number 11, you're going to try out an iceberg. For this, you're going to write a 250-word story where you write an argument in which the character's real feelings are not fully expressed. Use dialogue, but make it cryptic. Use all aspects of communication, facial expressions, body language. Setting is also a character. Use it to convey emotion. Remember, this is 250 words. You're going to post it as your first journal for this week, journal number 11. Make sure you run spell check, but let it flow. Just make sure that each story that you write for this class includes all the parts of the story. We'll go back to that slide. An exposition, a conflict or crisis, a falling action, and a resolution. You must have a protagonist, a main character. You need to have a person, place, or thing working against that character in some way. That's the antagonist, and there must be a clearly described setting. Your next writing journal is you're going to try writing a facade. Here you're going to spend time developing a character who's nothing like you. Tell an anecdote in the voice of this character. That means you're going to tell a story from the point of view of this character. As the character tells his or her story, have him unknowingly undercut or discredit his or her explanation. Make sure you begin your story at the right moment. So remember, you got to set it up so that this is the right time for this person to start telling the story. Make sure the conflict of the story is very clear, and also make sure that this has all the parts of the story. Again, 250 words, doesn't have to be perfect. You're trying out the form, trying to figure out which one you want to revise for your formal writing assignment. Your 5th formal writing assignment is due this week. As you know, each week you're going to be asked to spend time revising one of the writing exercises you wrote for this week. You can also revise your dialogue for the week. Writing exercises will be graded on how much effort you put into crafting a finished piece of writing. Use the questions on the next slide to help you revise your exercise into a story. Don't forget to review grammar and spelling. Please type up your document and upload it under formal assignment number 5. Please only upload .doc, .docx, or .pdf files. You must upload those for me to be able to see your actual document, so please make sure you do that. Questions to ask yourself about your fiction piece. Do you have a title? If you turn in something without a title, you will lose points. Have you run spell check and corrected any grammatical errors? If you turn in something with spelling or grammatical errors, you will lose points. Is your revision significantly different than the exercise you wrote in your journal this week? If your piece looks the same as your journal entry or shows little change between drafts, you will lose points. Have you made the best use of literary methods? Meaning, do you have all parts of the story? Have you developed a clear setting? Have you developed a clear protagonist and antagonist? Are they introduced in the exposition? Is a clear conflict addressed and created and then resolved in the end in some way? All right, guys, the last announcement. I want to invite you to come to the Napa Valley Writers Conference for free. I know our class ends very soon, but you still have the opportunity to keep on learning about creative writing for free. All you need is a student ID or to notify me in advance, and you can attend any of the readings that are part of the Napa Valley Writers Conference. Don't miss this wonderful opportunity to learn about creative writing from some of the best poets and fiction writers in our country. The conference takes place from July 26th to July 31st. We are also looking for student volunteers at the conference. If you are interested, please contact me as soon as possible. Here's my email address. Please look below at the reading schedule. All of them take place at wineries, and there are free wine tastings involved for those who are over 21. There's the other place where this takes place is at our Upper Valley campus in St. Helena. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Next week is our last week. Believe it or not, very fast class. We're going to continue to write some fiction, but we're going to work heavily on revising our work, and at the end of the week, you will be turning in your final portfolio. So I look forward to reading your fiction online. As always, please let me know if you have any questions, and I will answer your emails as quickly as possible. If I ever don't answer your email fast enough, please respond via email and remind me of your email question. All right, guys, see you online.